Normally, yeah. Okay, I've started. So stakeholder management plan, basically it would help you to make sure that you know all your stakeholders. So if not knowing the stakeholder, that's a great risk. Have you guys heard of something called user acceptance test criteria? UATs, as we call them
No.
in short. No. So it is a list
Yes.
of it is a wish list. It's a sort of wish list. So this wish list contains in say sort of a checklist. I mean, one thing is the requirement documentation. So requirement documentation describe. Now this user acceptance test criteria is basically is a sort of understanding with the stakeholder that if you want your I mean your product or the final outcome to be accepted, then what are the things or what are the features that the product should be performing at the end of the project. So these are the features. They are should be listed out in the user acceptance test. So user acceptance test has the feature which would fulfill the scope and which would fulfill the quality as well. So this is coming directly from the stakeholders. So we have to understand that what are the expectations of these stakeholders and list them as a sort of the checklist, which is the user acceptance test criteria. So you should be able to use the user acceptance test criteria to fulfill the expectations of the client. So you can create milestone wise also that what is the user acceptance, test criteria for the milestone 1, milestone 2, milestone 3, and then for the overall product or the project. So all that can be collected, and that you can run the check against the user acceptance test criteria each time you are ready to provide a deliverable. Okay. So who is not aware of this user acceptance test criteria? So do you guys make a checklist of the items that a customer would normally be checking for before accepting the deliverable as correct and fulfilling his requirement?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that is very good and that is very important. Just like you make your risk register, so similarly you can use a Excel template and you can list out the user acceptance test criteria either classified as milestone or as classified as the phase of the project. Okay, so let's see. So these are the various processes of the stakeholder management. So we have got 4 processes. So first of all, we identify stakeholders. So this is something that we immediately do after we have received the charter. So immediately after receiving the charter, we start to identify the stakeholders, and what we get is a stakeholder register. Then in the planning, we plan stakeholder management, and in execution, we manage stakeholder engagement. We talk, discuss, clarify, and control stakeholder engagement. We we get work performance information and change request if any. Now this is how it goes. So basically the processes, they start from the left, that is the initiating group has identified stakeholders, then planning has plan stakeholder and management, and then execution has managed stakeholder engagement, monitoring controlling has control stakeholder engagement. So first of all we identify the stakeholders, then we analyze. So in this we basically analyze each of the stakeholders for the authority, for interest, for impact. We support each stakeholders, and then we do the assessment how the stakeholders will react or respond and plan to gain their support. So identify stakeholder is the first process that you would do immediately after getting a charter. So you have to identify all peoples, groups and organizations who are impacted by the project or primary users of the product or service. So these are the inputs. These are the starting point. So we take the project charter because the project charter would contain a name, some of the names of the client side. I mean, project engineers, and we take procurement documents, enterprise environmental factor, and organization processes. So charter also has the name of the client side people, those who are initially signing the, say, the purchase order or the work order, so that you can contact these people and start identifying the further stakeholders and build up a stakeholder list from the client side. So tool and technique would be your stakeholder, your analysis, expert judgment, and applied with meetings. So what do we have these meetings for? Basically, we in this meeting we analyze the profile. So we develop an understanding of the major project stakeholders, and they can be used to exchange and analyze information about roles, interests, knowledge, and the overall position of each stakeholder facing the project. Because this is very important for us to know, because we have to understand that what are the dynamics of the stakeholders as in the current project. So this is done, and in the stakeholder the information for identification, for the information assessment, and a stakeholder classification is done. Stakeholder register is created. So this is what a stakeholder register template looks like. So we start with name, title, phone, email. Then what we have is interest, authority, and classification. So stakeholder register is basically started with, so in that, the columns which are there for the stakeholder analysis. So how do we do that? So it is a technique of systematically gathering and analyzing qualitative and quantitative information to determine that which stakeholders interest to be taken into account in two steps. So in step one, we identify all the stakeholders with their roles, interests, expectations, influence, etc. The later part is typically done by interviewing the identified stakeholders. Step two, identify the potential impact each stakeholder could generate and classify them so as to define an appropriate strategy. Stakeholder type is supportive, and who is a supportive one? So the one who is aware of the project and potential impacts and is supportive to change. Then there are stakeholders, those who are leading. So they are aware of the project and potential impacts and actively engaged in ensuring the project is a success. Then resistant, so aware of the project and potential impacts and resistant to change. Unaware, so unaware of project and potential impact. Neutral, aware of the project but yet neither supportive nor resistant. So these are the certain kind of the stakeholders. So the stakeholders, even resistant, is good. And if you lead to the, I mean, say the neutral. So basically you got to understand that how much time you should be spending with each of the stakeholders. Because sometimes we might, without analyzing the stakeholders, we might end up spending a lot of time with the ones that are resistant, unaware, or neutral, and without focusing on the supportive and leading. So we have to do the analysis based upon the project. So, so this is typically done by interviewing the identified stakeholders. So we identify the potential impact, and each impact, I mean, each of the stakeholders could generate and classify them so as to define an appropriate strategy. So stakeholder analysis is done like this. So this is one of the analysis. It is called a power interest grid. So the power is plotted on the y-axis. So on a scale of 0 to 100. So it is high. It is called the high. So the 100 is called the high. and there is a quadrant basically formed out of the interaction of these. So it looks like this. So it's your basically I mean power and interest grid, and then there are three more kind of grids: power influence grid, influence and impact grid, and salience model. So this basically describes the level of active involvement, influence, and their ability to affect changes to projects planning or execution. And in the salience model, it describes the classes of stakeholders based upon their power, that is the ability to impose will, urgency, need for immediate attention, and legitimacy, the appropriate involvement. So mostly with the one which is most commonly used is the power interest grid. So in which the level of the authority, that is the power, and the level of concern interest is plotted. Now if you look at this grid, so this is a 50-50 grid. So the interest is divided into say 100%. Okay, and the power is also defined as 100%. So we take the scales and then we analyze them. So after the analysis, so different stakeholders come in the different quadrants. Like if you look at the quadrant, so which is on the right hand top, so it says manage closely. So manage closely would mean that that means that you have to manage them closely and as frequently as possible. And then there are stakeholders who are having high power but low interest. Okay, so they are basically to be kept informed. Then there are high, I mean, there are stakeholders with high interest but low power, so they are to be kept informed. And the ones which are considered as low power, low interest, so basically they are the dummy ones. Okay, so you just keep this in mind. So with this, we will be able to do a lot of, understanding and questions. So stakeholder,
Sujoy,
yeah.
sorry, is this now called Solios model?
So
Is this the name of?
yeah. So actually, this is the one that I'm showing right now. That is the power interest. So here is the name here, and these three, this 2, 3, and 4. So you will be able to see in your PMO. So I've taken one example here. And now how would you plot this? Basically, when you are going to meet your stakeholders, say people on the client side, so you can observe, you can try to know their designations, you can try to understand by interacting with them, by communicating with them face to face, that how much they're involved in the project. So you would know their interest, and then you would know their power also. If there is any person who can change the requirement, he can just override the requirements of any people given to him previously. Okay, so it means that the person has a high power because he can make a lot of changes, and he has a high interest also because he is able to answer most of the questions, and he is a very knowledgeable person. Okay, so that is the power interest grid. So let me also tell you one thing very practically. So when you make such power interest grid, so this is something for your eyes only. I mean, this is for your own use only, and do not share it with anyone. So that's your own analysis. Now how do you utilize it? Basically, when you are going to some say some client organization, a lot of people would like to meet you and talk to you. So you should be basically utilizing your time wisely in talking to people. So if you are invited, or if you have the opportunity, so spend more time with the H group people. H group people, and there are many, okay, who would just like to be, or who would just need to be monitored. So monitored in the sense they have to be looked over that what is their requirement which is coming in once in a while, send them some sort of a report. Okay, the ones that are having high power and low interest, you just have to keep them satisfied by sending any kind of requirement that they make from time to time. If someone from the, say, the monitor group calls you for immediate and urgent attention and monitoring, so that should require, I mean, to understand that you are not supposed to apply too much time here, so you can cut it short and you can move on. Okay. Now we come to the plan stakeholder management. It is the process of developing appropriate management strategies to effectively engage stakeholders in the project decisions and execution based upon on the analysis of their needs, interest and potential impact. So how do you plan the stakeholders? So you take the following inputs. You take the project management plan, you take the stakeholder register, and you basically apply the environmental factor and organization process assets, and you have an expert meeting with your expert judgment basically after meeting with your team members upon the client, and it took, I mean, it would take you to apply the analytical techniques in those meetings. So analytical techniques would be like you have to identify that which have the, I mean, the potential to influence and impact the projects in big way, who are in the leadership role, okay, who are in the basically the the role which is most powerful role, okay, and then you would be updating your stakeholder columns in the stakeholder register. So you would get a stakeholder management plan and project document updates. Now let me show you that what is a stakeholder management plan. Okay.
Sujoy?
Yes, I'm trying to locate the file. Just a
Okay.
moment. Yeah, I'm locating the
No,
file.
because I thought we lost you again, like you say.
No,
You're
I'm
speaking.
there. I'm getting to the appropriate file and getting to the appropriate screen. I hope now you can see the screen.
Yes.
So you see an Excel sheet. So basically, if you look carefully, we see if you're doing a project, so you should be able to basically make a list like this. And if you look at the green column, so you know that is the original stakeholder list. That when you identify the stakeholders, so this is what you get, right? And then when you do your communications planning, you add these columns, which is basically marked in blue color. So that is report required, frequency, format, sender, constraint. Okay, and there is another stakeholder stakeholder, I mean, attribute, that is the power and interest and strategy. So that you add. So to basically to analyze that what is the power and interest and what is the strategy needed to handle the stakeholders. So what you will be doing, that you are going to get a copy of this along with the student package. So you have to immediately prepare for your current project. It's not that you would be showing it to someone, but it is for your own understanding, and you have to keep it handy with you. Because sometimes I've observed that when you need to talk to someone in your project and you don't have this handy, and that's a problem. So you should also make sure that you can add additional columns, and you can map it and convert this into the traceability matrix. So what you can do, that you can put the major sections of the requirements. So you can create a category that is the client side, and you can keep the same columns, and you just mark a list as client side. So under that you also have another column, so you can mark the requirement traceability there, and this list would serve you very handy, and basically you would never miss important stakeholder, and you would be also able to analyze them. Now when you talk about the power, interest and strategy, this is basically useful if you apply it more on the client side people, so that you can deal with the people appropriately. So the idea is that you should be paying more attention and spending more time with the people, those who have more power and more interest. So what is being recommended here, those who have more power and more interest, so you should manage them closely. So do you see this quadrant? Let me number them. So let's call this as quadrant 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So basically you would be paying more attention to those people, those who are coming in the quadrant 1. Okay, and then you have people in the quadrant 2, then you have people in the quadrant 4, and then 3. So that way you will be optimizing on your time, resources, and you will be able to handle them better. Okay, so you just have a look at this, and basically I'm going to put this spreadsheet here on the screen. So 1 second. So, but can we take a small little break while you try to understand this thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
fine.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start again.
Yes.
Okay. So have you made any kind of the stakeholders register? Do you have any kind of stakeholder register? I mean, to keep track of the people, those who are, impact. I mean, those who are involved in your projects, like your team members or client side people or vendors or something like that.
Yes. Yes, I do.
Okay, so I believe that you can have a look at this template, and if you think that any of the, extra fields are useful, like I would, I believe that you would like to add the the communication management columns. That is the report required frequency, format, sender, and constraint. So you are in a better position to send the ones which are the regular reports. And plus, if you are not around, so any person who is stepping in for you can use this, I mean, stakeholder register to look at the communication needs and continue to send the reports on your behalf, right? So that is the advantage of this. So this way, so no client, no user or no stakeholder would be left uncommunicated even in your absence. So you can take care of this, and the thing that we are right now we are focusing on is on the stakeholder management. So stakeholder management means that what is the strategy to deal with the various stakeholders. So this has come from the observation of the project managers, those who used to do the stakeholder management. So normally what they would do, normally they would do it inside their heads. They had some sort of smartness. So then PMI converted that smartness into process so that the rest of us can be also very smart when we are handling the key stakeholders. So so they would mark their power and interest, and here so they will be using four different kind of stakeholder analysis. The most common one is the power interest, right? So this is the one which we are talking about. And what else is compared is the power influence, then there is influence impact, and then there is a salience model. So basically the salience model is used to compare their the urgency, need for immediate attention, and legitimacy, appropriate involvement. Okay, so these are the four different. So the one which is shown in the map is the power. So you would be managing these three people like BEHF. You would be managing them more closely, and the person A has to be kept satisfied, and those who are C and E, they have to be kept informed about the status of the projects, and the rest G and D, so they are just monitoring. And now we have to plan the stakeholder management. So it is the process of developing appropriate management strategies. So the strategies you can mention in your strategy column. So to effectively engage the stakeholders in project decisions and execution based on analysis of their needs, interest, and potential impact. So plan stakeholder management inputs is the project management plan, then your stakeholder register, enterprise environmental factors, organizational process assets, tools and techniques would be expert judgment, then meetings, then analytical techniques, and the outputs would be your stakeholder management plan and the project documents updates. So stakeholder management plan. So in addition to the data gathered in the stakeholder register, the stakeholder management plan also provides what is the desired and the current engagement levels of the key stakeholders. And basically you have to be rightly, I mean, uh, rightly setting up the engagement levels. So you look at the what is the current level of engagement and what is the desired level. So which will give the right input to the stakeholder management. Then what are the identified interrelationship between stakeholders? And then stakeholder communication requirements for the current project phase, Then information to be distributed to stakeholders, including the language, format, content, and level of detail. So that includes a face-to-face meeting. Now, if you look at this stakeholder management plan, so if you look at this column, so this is a constraint. So, so basically, if you have a constraint, the constraint could be language also. So here the constraint means that you have very little time overlap between the different time zone. You can have some meeting, online meeting, say either early in the morning or late in the evening. So that's what it means. And the constraint can be the language as well. So you got to make sure that you have appropriate interpreter available to communicate. And reason for the distribution of that information and the expected impact to stakeholder engagement, time frame and frequency for distribution of required information to stakeholders, and method for updating and refining the stakeholder management plan as the project progresses and develops. So that is the stakeholder management plan. And manage the stakeholder engagement, the process of communicating and working with stakeholders to meet their needs, expectations, address the issues as they occur. So that is the managed stakeholder engagement. And how do we do that? We take the stakeholder management plan as an input and as a guidance document. And communication management plan, they tell us what is the communication that should be done, and change log if any. Now, why do we need some change? Because as we are currently engaged with the stakeholders, so we might observe that certain changes are required, and there are certain changes which occur due to the stakeholder status change that can happen during the course of the project. A person who might be in the monitoring quadrant can move up to the keep informed or manage closely, okay, or keep satisfied. So you have to make sure that you step up the engagement level to the right level. And so that would be noticeable through the change log that can be tracked from the change log. Then you also take in factor in your organization process assets, tools, and communication is the communication methods, then interpersonal skills you need to have, and then your management skills you have to apply to manage the stakeholder engagement. So, and output would be the issue log. So whether the issue has been addressed, taken care of, what is the status, and change request, if any, is to be made to the stakeholder engagement. So basically, you also have to project management, you have to update your project management plan. Then related project documents need to be updated, and organization process assets to be also updated if needed for the managing the stakeholder engagement. Now, these are the communication methods. So basically, we have already been introduced to these three types. So it is just to refresh ourselves, because in the stakeholder engagement and management, the communication is very, very important, because that is the basic need of the stakeholder. But in the stakeholder, especially the stakeholder management, we are focusing more on understanding the stakeholder and strategize and applying a strategy to manage the stakeholder. So the interactive communication is basically is the kind of communication that we do it in real time, and push communication is the kind of communication which pushes information to multiple people or multiple stakeholders at once. So normally it does not require any reply. So it is just an sort of information or report, so which can go from time to time. And pull communication is when you have some sort of information which is addressed to or needed by very specific group of the stakeholders, or maybe for large of the audiences. So the updated information can be kept in one place, and any stakeholder or the recipient who need the information, so they can pull it down as per their requirement from time to time. So just like if you have any kind of a stakeholder, say related documents, any stakeholder who has an interest or stake in the documents. So those documents basically would be pertaining to the project. So if these documents are big, so it is not necessary that you have to send the documents, updated documents each time you are updating that. All you can just do that you can update the document and keep it in one place, and the stakeholder, based upon their need and based upon their frequency, they can basically check it out when they are going to use those documents, and they can pull the document. So that is the pull communication. So to control the stakeholder engagement, so it is the process of monitoring the overall project stakeholder relationships and adjusting strategies and plans for engaging the stakeholders. The key benefit of this process is that it will maintain or increase the efficiency of stakeholder engagement activities as the project evolves and its environment changes. So this can be a view of the stakeholder on the client side. So you would know that who are the stakeholders, they have to be managed closely. So this guy could be the managed closely. Okay, so the one here, so this could be the one who is managed closely. This one second. Oh, sometimes the pen doesn't work. So you can see the human figure in the red color. So this is the guy who is to be managed closely, and the others are to be kept informed. One second, something's got hung up. Okay, so sometimes it just okay. So this person is to be managed closely, and since these people are important, so they have to be kept informed, kept satisfied, and these people are just monitored. So you should be able to keep some information regarding the stakeholders. Now this is something that the project managers used to do in their mind. So they used to map up the people based upon their power and interest. So they would map up these people, and they would basically spend more time with the appropriate stakeholders so as to keep a good grip on the project and have a good understanding and requirement, because there are a lot of things which can change, which is basically if you need some information or you need some kind of data. So normally there would be certain stakeholders, say at the level, say at the yellow or the green level, so they would be reluctant to provide. So if you have a communication going in from the level red, so the guy at the top, so if he recommends that they should be sharing certain information with you, that how this is to be done, so this is something which will help you manage your project better. So that's how we control the stakeholder engagement. So that's going to increase the efficiency of the project. That is the key benefit, that it maintains the or increases the efficiency of the stakeholder engagement activity as the project evolves and its environment changes. Now control stakeholder engagement. These are the inputs, that is the project management log, then the issue log, work performance data, project documents, tool and techniques are the information management systems, then your expert judgment, then your meetings, work performance information is the output. Okay, and change request in the engagement level, if any, if required. So and project management plan updates, project document updates, and organization process updates. Now we come to the quiz. So basically the stakeholder engagement and the stakeholder management is about understanding these processes and the models. So basically it has been separated from the communication because despite doing communication to all the stakeholders in a timely fashion, it was observed that certain projects were still not getting well managed. So basically it was certain stakeholders, the key stakeholders, especially on the client side. So they were basically are to be managed well so that you can have a good grip and control on the project. So that was observed, and then certain processes were separated out from the communication and stakeholder management was formed separately. So the idea is to manage the engagement level with the stakeholders and identify the stakeholders based upon their power interest, power influence. Okay, then you can have the salience model, that is urgency and the the legitimacy. Okay, then influence and impact. So the four ways that you can evaluate, the better control you will have on the stakeholders and the more stability you will be able to achieve in the project. So if you have any kind of job to be done from the client side, if you need any information, you will find this information is at a particular level, but then you need some sort of a mandate or some sort of an engagement from the top level. So that is something you can have through your, understanding of the stakeholder level, and you can have an appropriate engagement. So let's go for the quiz. So this is a very basic knowledge area. Okay, so it has got basic fundamentals. So what is the answer, if you could remember?
C.
See, manage stakeholder. Yes. So when you are managing, you have the issue log. Yeah. And as a project manager, you have been given a project charter. What is the next project process area you will get into immediately? The process area, not the process group.
Processor.
Yeah.
A.
So you have the charter. Now you have the permission to do the project. So what would you need to know after you get the permission to do the project? So what thing you will be doing first? Yes, absolutely right. So immediately you will start identifying the stakeholders. Salience model is used in one of the classification models for stakeholder management. So which combination does it have? If you can remember. So that's not the problem if you don't remember
D.
it. Yeah, it is the power and the legitimacy. Interpersonal skills and management skills are used in.
B.
B.
B. When you are planning, you don't need. When you are identifying, you don't need. And even in control, you don't need. So that's how it is. So this is, once you read through this chapter, you can basically remember very quickly. Meeting are used in all process area of stakeholder management except. So one of them doesn't use meeting. So where you don't. So you can start to identify the ones where you use a meeting. So do you use meeting in the identify?
Yes.
So you just mark it here, a little bit of marker. And in planning, do you use meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you are left with manage and control. So one of them doesn't use a meeting, so that would be the answer. So where do you don't need a meeting? In controlling or
D.
managing?
D.
D? Is it D or C? Even I'm not sure. So let's have a look at the process. So you need a meeting in the control. So if you need a meeting in the control, actually it is the uh, C, where you don't need a meeting. You don't need a meeting when you are managing. So here what you are doing, you are managing and using interpersonal skills. Okay. So the correct answer is C. Here you don't need a meeting. So basically you can read through the
I will
PMBOK.
never say that.
So basically you can read the PMBOK and you will have more clarity on this, that why don't you need a meeting. So when you are managing, you are just interacting with the stakeholder using your interpersonal skills. So basically when you are talking about meeting, so basically we are talking about the team meeting. Okay. So here we don't need that actually. Now Leonard is working as a project manager in soft.com. So this is uh, just like one of the previous questions, it has been embedded in a story.
C.
Absolutely right, because no, not the key stakeholder. First, you have to determine the exhaustive list of stakeholders and seek meetings with them. So you have a kickoff
Is
meeting with the team.
the exhaustive list of stakeholders something you do later on in planning?
Yeah, so you have to start it in the beginning because you have a list of the key stakeholders already available with you when you start the project, and then you determine the exhaustive list and seek meetings with them. So that should be the
But
first step.
this is the start of the project. It's in just right after the project charter. So
So immediately after the charter, you have to make sure that you are able to find out as many stakeholders as possible, because after this you would go to the development of the project main plan and your requirement collection. So when you collect your requirement, so it would not be a good idea to miss on any of the stakeholders. So you should have all the list of the stakeholders handy with you as much as possible. So that is why you need to determine an exhaustive list of stakeholders and seek meetings with them. So you seek meetings with them so that you can have a good understanding of the project requirements. That's the idea. Okay.
D.
Yeah, so you should basically
yeah.
do this thing. First of all, you have to understand that what are the objectives. See, basically, people would say I'm not happy and this and that. Actually, PMI basically works on process. So what is the process? If you are not happy, then what makes you unhappy? It's something that should be known by the project manager. So project manager should try to find out and from the client that what makes you unhappy. Basically, you have to basically come from the subjective to the objective list of the things which make unhappy, and then you have to examine your requirement document, your scope baseline, and your project schedule and the user acceptance test criteria, and find out if you are within the expectation or not, and if there is something that the client might not be aware of, okay, that as what was initially agreed, so you can bring to the notice of the client. Okay, if the client wants a change, that's fine, as long as the client accepts that the document is true and there is a sign off on the document. So what does the PMI say? PMI says that deliver the product as per the scope, Nothing less, nothing more. So if you stick to this rule, so you will find that you are mostly, appreciated for the effort, and you have a greater satisfaction. So this has been observation for a very long time, that if you try to upscale the scope or downscale it, so that goes wrong. So just keep to the originally agreed plan, and if you have a dissatisfied customer, try to find out objectively that what is missing, and so that the expectation can be set right, or the things, if you really find something has been missing, you can fix it right to match up with the requirement. So the first thing that you should do, if you get such kind of a communication or a feeler, so you should fix up a meeting with the client to understand the issue and then plan accordingly whatever is the fix. Okay. Eighth,
See? See.
yes, so that is identify stakeholder.
A.
B.
Yes,
A.
stakeholder register and communication plan. So the stakeholder register is initially consisting of the stakeholder contacts, and when you come to the communication management, you add up those columns regarding the communication, and when you come to the stakeholder management plan, so you add up the columns for the power, influence and influence impact, and urgency, legitimacy, etc. So that gives you a complete stakeholder management. 10th, now this is the power interest,
Yeah.
now which should be closely managed in a power interest with stakeholder types.
Both
B.
high.
Yeah, B, high power and high interest, so they should be closely managed. Okay, so that you have a very stable project management. So that is about the stakeholder management. So make sure that if you're working in a large project with large stakeholders, and make sure that none of the stakeholders are missed starting from the beginning, from the requirement, and you should always make a user acceptance test criteria. That is an expectation list, because the test criteria, it says very clearly what test the product should pass through so that it can be accepted by the user as correct. So you can create a UAT milestone wise. For each of the milestone, you should have a UAT, and all these UATs will add up to the final UAT for the product. And for the product, you can have certain different features which will be tested after integration. So you can have one small set of integration UAT. So once you pass that criteria, it means that the product has been delivered or the project has been completed to the satisfaction. So user acceptance test criteria is also another way of basically managing the stakeholder expectation. So these are the stakeholders basically. So so sometimes you miss some of the stakeholders, so there can be some trouble. So This is a cartoon. Now let's come to the professional responsibilities. So this is something that you can read. So basically the professional responsibility is for you to read and keep in mind. Now basically if you look at the PMP exam, so PMP exam is of objective type format. A lot of people they make mistake, they basically they jump into the exam in haste, so they do not know that what is their preparedness level. So there's no need to do that thing. So observing this, so what I have done that I have collected a set of question banks. Okay, so in the question bank, so when you take up the questions in the first question bank, so whatever questions that you are not able to answer correctly, so they point it to you in the direction of where you should be paying more attention. So what do you need to do? First of all, you need to have a study plan to cover the entire knowledge area, because what we have discussed in these training sessions is that what are the core concepts, what are the core concepts, and what are the like the concepts, like what are the process groups, what is a project, what is a program, what is project management, and what are the project constraints. These are the very basics, like the difference between cost and price, the difference between requirement and scope, the difference between grade and quality. Okay, so these are the things which are to be basically understood. Then you expand on this, and I have brought you to a point where you can do your self-study to having a very good grasp, and then you can master the whole PMP. So, so you if you fail, just never give up, because fail means first attempt in learning. So what I have done, you don't have to fail by spending money. So what I've done that I have created a set of questions, so which I gather from the various forums when I'm interacting with people. So these questions are basically sometimes coming from the question dumps, but let me tell you one thing, that PMI has a very large question bank of 15,000 plus questions, and whenever you are going to take a test, so your set of questions is created dynamically. So you have a combination of 200 questions which is unique. So each time you take a test, the set of questions that you get will be unique. So never expect that if you've seen a question outside, so that might come up. So there are hardly any chances of any question that you have known to come up. So basically PMI doesn't want you to pass the exam because you know the questions. They want you to pass the exam because you know project management, right? So that is the purpose. So let me share some tips and tricks with you. So these are the tips. The major tip is plan a study schedule. To plan a study schedule, you need some sort of a planner. So how to do this? Basically, I have created a student package. So in the package, I have created a planner for you, and now I'm going to explain this to you so that you can use the package effectively when you get this. Now let me switch over to the package. So do you see a list of folders here?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So it is the same for the PMP student, and you can ignore this folder, CABM application process. So the first folder that you will pick up is your learning aid folder. Now these folders will be shared on the Google Drive, and I would like you guys to just type in your Gmail the IDs, and those who have, they can ignore it. Those who have not given me Gmail IDs earlier, now they can put their Gmail IDs in the chat box. Okay, so that would help me to share with you on the Google Drive, because I've seen that Google Drive works best with the Gmail ID. Now the first folder that you should start with is the learning aid. So in the learning aid, the first file that you should start with is your my study plan. Now the study plan works like this. Suppose say today you are on the 25th of November. So I would suggest that you take this week to wind up your professional and personal things. You start your study plan from say Monday, that is the 30th of November. So what you do here is that you change the start date, you make it 30th of the November. So it would come up like this. Now this is 1 week. Now the requirement of the project, I mean that is the first level of the study, is around 130 man hours. Now 130 person hours is basically has been taken from the observation for a pretty long time. Say I've been training since 2009 when I myself got uh, certified, and from my own observation also in interacting. See, there are 10 knowledge areas, right? And the average time that it takes per knowledge in the area is around 13 hours. But then there are certain knowledge areas like time and cost management. You would appreciate the fact that it takes a little bit more time to practice on the maths questions so that your speed can increase. So I assume that you all know your maths very well. You can calculate and get the right answers. But the only thing that now remains is to increase your speed. So these knowledge areas take time. So the knowledge areas which are small, they are communications management and the stakeholder management and even the scope. Scope is something that you are very much familiar with. So some knowledge areas are going to take more time, like your cost management, time management. So they're going to take much time in practicing, and some say like your risk management or your procurement if you're new to procurement. So you might need to take some little bit more time to study. So the average turns out to be 130 man hours. So that is the work effort for this preparation. Now, how soon you can cover up your 130 man hours or person hours? So what I have done that as per my observation, I have observed that you can spare up to 13 person hours per week. And how is that? So people are working in a 5-day week environment, and each day they can spare around 1 hour, and on the weekends they can maximum spare is that they can spare is 8 hours. So 8 hours, I mean 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday maximum. So that much because you need some time for your personal life, and then you are already having personal and professional commitments, because the PMP training happens for experienced people, those who are already in the job. It's not for freshers. So at this point of time, nobody is sponsoring your study, and you are not in a college, the hostel. So you have projects and you have a family to take care of. So that is the observation. So that is 13 hours per week at max. Now, how do you track this? So basically what do? You take up one knowledge area and you start your studies, and you note your actual hours here. Now, if you have spent around 13 hours, so the balance is zero. Similarly, if you spend 13 hours, balance is zero. And suppose if your actual hours, they lag behind by a certain number of the hours, you just note it here, 3, then 4, then 7. So then what happens? That once you have fallen short of say 7 or 8 person hours, so you can take a day off and you can put in some time, which might be actually more than the normal. So like the 12 hours, so you can stretch it up to say 14 hours of the study, it's fine, or you just say 12. So then what happens? So if you study for 12 hours, so this is the balance hours that you have. Okay, so this balance hours is something that you can cover up. So you have a shortfall of 14. So you basically can calculate this, and then you can do some studies here, and then come up to the point where you use the question bank 1. So question bank 1 is something that you would use. So where is the question bank? I'll just show it to you. So after using the question bank, you just go through the answer list and you find out that how many answers you marked were correct. And now you do the gap study. So basically you would identify the gaps by identifying the knowledge areas in which you couldn't answer the question correctly, and you would get an idea about which questions belong to which or knowledge area when you evaluate. So after doing that, you do a gap study. So the gap study isn't going to take more than a couple of days. You do a gap study for 3-4 days, and after that you take your test again. So if you fail, so you fail free of cost. You don't have to tell the whole world that I failed. So basically it's not a failure. Basically you are preparing towards the real test where you can pass in the first instance. So here you will definitely find that your grades have improved, but not that much. So you take another test. So you might pass it. So you just note the score. Then you take another test, another test. So you do a gap study for a couple of days and then you take another test. So maybe within the next say 10 days you might take 3 tests, and if you find that consistently you are scoring more than 75%, so you can go and take the real test. So many people have reported that by doing this and taking the real test, they hardly felt anything because they had taken the mock test 3-4 times, and they are they were getting so interested to so in used to taking the test that the real test actually felt like another set of a mock test. So that was the response. But I would suggest that you basically spend more time. I mean, just evaluating yourself after your first level of the studies is completed. So you go through the iteration of the test questions and make sure that you stick to the plan. And if you are falling short of the plan, you can take a day off and then catch up with the plan. So this is the first thing that you should do. You should use the PMP study plan. And this is your answers scoring sheet. Okay, so you can print a couple of these sheets and keep the handy. And if you answer any questions, so you can mark your responses here in the blank sheet and then compare it against the result. Now, what we have here is notes. That is the formula. So what I've done, that if you want to take some notes, you actually don't have to take some notes. So you can use these ready-made notes to basically remember any formula. And if you think that you need to add some more notes, so what you can do, that you can take this printout, you can add 2 more blank pages, and then you have 4 pages of notes. And this is your critical path drill in case you feel that you need to do this critical path drill once again. So you can take this. Okay, so this will take you step by step through the critical path, and it will refresh you through the critical path, though I'm sure that you might not need it. So still you can refresh yourself. It's a sort of a worksheet. So you can print the first 12 pages and you can use it to basically give an idea about the critical path once again. So this is the same one that I have used in the exercises. So you can do this exercise once again and you would be refreshed on the critical paths. So this is the first folder. Now coming to the second folder, the second folder has got the templates. Like if you want to make the project charter, so you can use this template. So it shows you what are the contents that are to be filled in, and it gives you a very detailed explanation regarding the content. And if you study that carefully and you can draw upon your current project, so you can write a charter for your own project. Okay, so in the same format. But it's not limited to this. If you want to add some more information, and if that looks appropriate to add those in information, so you can alter the charter. So this is the very basic point where you start from. So this is compliant with the PMBOK 5. Okay, so this is a template for charter, for statement of work, Like if you want to develop a statement of work for, now this is the statement of work. It's not from your client, but it's from your side to your subcontractor. When you are doing a procurement, if you want some subcontractor to do something for you, you got to write a statement of work so that the subcontractor can understand that what is to be done, and he can give you a very good accurate calculation of the estimates for time and cost. So that is the statement of work. So that's what. Then you have the scope management plan, then work breakdown structure, etc., cost management plan. So all these are descriptive documents which you can use to basically develop your own project charter, I mean your project documents. And then this is a risk register template, so which you can use to list out all the risk in your project and rate them. And you can have a look at 2-3 templates that we have here, and you can have me send the one that you like best. Right, so these are the templates that you can use. And then we come to the next. So there are certain PMI magazines. So once you become a member, so you can download your own copies. So basically, this is to show you that how interesting is project management. So there are lots of projects which are happening all over the world. So you can get an idea about the different projects which are happening around the world by reading this magazine, so that you can understand and have a broader view on the project management profession. So this is a magazine, and this is the PMI application process. So in the application process, I have included a handbook, which is the latest one, 26th of June. So this is, so, basically this handbook shows you the complete PMI application process. Like if you look at this, it shows you the step-by-step flow chart. So if you submit application submission, then completeness, then application payment process, then the audit process. So all this is shown here step by step. Okay, so and then you should be collecting your project information in the Excel sheet. And then what you should be doing. So okay, I have included my exam scheduling notice. So once you get the green flag, so it looks like this. So what you get is a PMI identification code. Once you have, so how do you get it? First of all, you become a member, submit your exam application. It goes through the audit process. You pay the fee, and after that you get this scheduling notice. Now if you look at this, so this is valid for 1 year. Okay, so this is valid for full 1 year, and so you can take exam at any Prometric center. Then this is your basically it's a local address, so you don't need to use this. So this is the PMP certification exam. So this is the latest one. Okay, so this is the outline of the latest, so you can read it. Now this is the sample question bank. So this is the question set 1, 2, 3. Now let me show you the questions. So you use only set 1 questions at one time. So these are the very typical PMI style questions. So this is, so I hope you are looking at this. So can you try this one? Question number 2, senior management of your team decide to bring in all team members from different locations across the same country. We put together at one location near to your customer. It was earlier found that putting together entire good for productivity. It will also reduce a number of misunderstanding between which was earlier. So what kind of a resource management tool in which knowledge area? So basically what you are doing is co-location in develop project team. So when you are bringing people together so as to cut down on the communication time and the and confusion. So you are doing co-location, right? So I believe that you can now see through the story. So you know why this story is there. Basically, we are surrounded by stories in our real lives. So we have to boil down those stories to the appropriate process, apply that process, and get better, right? So this is what this is designed to test. So this is designed to test your project management abilities, project management knowledge. Not because you have seen this question. So you're seeing this question right now. You won't be seeing this question in the PMI exam. So this is actual PMI question. Okay. So where did it come from? Basically, it comes from the various forums that I am scouring through. Okay, so I spend my time doing that. I'm talking to people. I help certain people. So certain people ask me for guidelines, and as a form of gratitude, when they take the exam, so they dump certain questions from their brains which they've seen. Certain people, they do have visual memory, so they can dump 5-6 questions completely. And so these are those questions. These are actual questions, but do not expect to see this question again. So the story will change. Maybe the answers might remain the same. Okay, but this will give you a very good practice. So these are 3 sets, and this is the 4th one. So this is Head First. So Head First is a publishing company. They have a book on the PMP guide. So this is the set of question, and the answers are down below. So these are 4 sets, and there are 2 more sets which I will show you. So they are inside the study guide. So this is your PM book. So basically this is a PM book which is just floating around on the internet. So normally what happens is when you download your own copy, so it will be stamped and it will be having a password control. So this guy somehow he has removed the password and he is distributing it to the whole world. So I thought that I'll share it with you. So what you can do that you can use it and you can just delete it. So you just download your own copy. And this is a head first guide. And at the end of the guide, at the end of every chapter, there are questions. So these also work as question bank. So if you go through this guide, you can buy the hard copy of the anti-Crow guides. I believe this costs around $65 if you wish to buy this, but you can read this for a while. And these are the knowledge areas and the chapters, and they have around 20 questions at the end of the chapter, and then 200 questions at the end of the book. So that is another question bank, right? So you have this 6 question banks. So how do you use it? So first of all, you go through your studies. Now when you want to go through the first iteration, so what you will do that you will read my slides once again, and then you will read this guide. Where I recommend you read Andy Crow's guide. Okay, and you answer the 200 questions at the end of this guide. So how do you take the test? So to take the test, the first thing that you have to do is switch off your mobile phone. And before that, you ensure that you have 4 hours continuous time and not unbroken time. So then you start your countdown timer from the 4 hours, and then you take the test and then compare the results and try to find out the gap, the questions that you missed. Do a gap analysis, gap study, and then you do the studies for the knowledge area questions which you missed, and you try to see if that improved. Okay, and I believe that it would improve each time you take the test, and every time you have to do the gap study. So then you have 3 study guides. There is third one also, so which is a little bit of short guide which is written by me. So you can use this also. Okay, so basically I had published it in the Middle East. So you can read this. So this is how you are going to use the student package. The first thing is that you would plan. So planning is the key. So where is the plan? That is the learning aid, your study plan. Okay, and after that you will in parallel submit your application and then study the slide, then guide, take the first test, gap study, second test, gap study, third test, gap study, fourth. And once you are sure that you are getting consistently 75% marks So you can go ahead and take the actual test and you will pass it. Sometimes people are getting around 80%, 90% in the mock test. Okay, so basically these are the mock tests, but they don't cost you money. So people sometimes they make mistake. They take a very costly mock test. They end up paying $405 for the mock test. So which is not recommendable. It is recommendable that you take the mock test at home and free of cost. And when you go and take the actual test, so you pass it, right? So does it sound right?
Yes.
Yep.
So any questions here?
Yes,
Yes.
one question. Okay, I heard some advices that it is wisely to use Rita parallel with PMBOK. Is that correct or no? Rita Malkahi.
Rita Mulkahi, see, I have gone through her study guide. I'm not sure. So if you can understand her language, it's fine. What I recommend is that you can see her videos. She's very, I mean, she explains in a very, she's very articulate, very expressive. I find her good, very, that way she's very good. But her study guide has kind of language and a lot of people, they say that we get confused. So I don't recommend that. I find that Andy Crowe's study guide is the best. So you can read Andy Crowe, but if you want to read Rita, just be very careful. If you can understand her language, it's fine. If you can't, then do not confuse yourself. Now, how to use the PMBOK? Please note it. How to use the PMBOK? My first and foremost instruction is that PMBOK is not an exam preparation guide. In capital, I'm telling you, it is not an exam preparation guide. Do not read the PMBOK right away. So go for the slide and then the study guide. Okay. So what to do? See, when you get the PMBOK, so you just take a printout of the glossary. So the glossary starts from 550. You take a printout of the glossary pages only, right? So I believe that would be around like say 10 pages, not too much of paper. Okay, so you take printout of the glossary and you read the glossary. Whenever you find some time, you just keep the glossary handy. You don't have to print the entire PMBOK, just only the glossary. Just read the glossary. Every day you find some time, and if you are say traveling but not driving, okay, so if you are being driven around or you are going taking a metro train, you will just take out the glossary and read it. And basically you can load this PDF file into your smartphone and you can just pull it out and read it from there also, just only the glossary. Now this will increase your vocabulary as you read through the study guides. Okay, so you can read the PMBOK, the last thing just before you take the exam. And if you think that you want to expand on something, you can dive into the PMBOK and then come back to your study guide. So you read the PMBOK like that. But PMBOK is not the study guide for exam. It is a practical handbook for project managers to manage the project, right? So what is good for you to prepare for the exam is your study guide. And here is my slide. My slide is in the root folder of the package. So when you download the package, so this is here on the root folder and you can get the slide right away and then you go through the various folders. So make sure that you can use them appropriately. Now let's take a small break and after the break we will come back and we will go through some trick questions. Okay, PMP style examples and then I will explain to you how to tackle this. Right, so let's take a break and be back.
Okay.
Hej Johanna, Magnus Dahlén heter jag. Hej. Du, jag tänkte få se vad jag får tag i Jonny Karlsson. Ja, precis. Ja, visst. Ja, tack.
So can we start again?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's go through some PMP type example questions. So basically, the questions which we are seeing at the end of each of the knowledge based now. So they were mostly, focused on to get an idea that what you have understood in that particular knowledge area. But here, the questions that is put into the PMI exam set. So basically, these questions will be asked in a tricky fashion. Okay. So they will be embedded in story, or they will have kind of answers where you will feel that two answers are nearly correct. So basically one answer is the selectable answer. So you have to go through those tricks. And if you look at the mathematical calculations, so they also have some tricks inbuilt. But it's not that they will be something out of the PMI process or out of the way. All you have to do is just draw upon your project management knowledge and skills, and then see through the story and get into the real question and find out the correct answer. So if you look at this one, so what do you think is the correct one? Oops, so that got displayed, I hope. So which one you had decided? But otherwise you can tell me which one you had decided. An accepted deadline for a project approaches, however the project manager realizes only 75% of the work has been completed. The project manager then issues a change request. What should the change request the authorize? Yeah, basically, when you are faced with a situation, basically, see, if you look at ABC, ABC, they are very specific things that should be done. But how do you know that which one is the right one or the appropriate one? Basically, if you look at D, so what we need is a corrective action. So corrective action here means that we need to catch up with the project schedule. Okay, so it means that the completion of the work is not as per your planned values for those periods of time, for those durations. So what you need to catch up with those durations, the work that should have been done in those durations, so what you need is a corrective action based on causes. So that's the answer. Then the project manager develops a process improvement plan to encourage continuous process improvement during the life, which is the following is a valid tool or technique to assess the project manager to assure the success of the process improvement plan.
B.
Yeah, and here, a lot of people they make mistake because the answer is so simple. So sometimes they realize that, sometimes they feel that it cannot be P. Actually, you need to analyze your process. Lessons learned from previous projects.
C.
Yes,
Risk.
actually it is risk identification because the any kind of mistakes that you made in the previous project, so that you can basically avoid in the current one. So risk identification is the thing. And as regard the scope, for the scope you cannot always need, you might not always need the previous project archive. So the current project's parameters are more appropriate. But definitely if you are doing something which has certain mistakes in the past, that you can always avoid in the future projects. It's not necessarily that in the same type of project, because the risk can be risk can be common across multiple projects. Okay, just keep in mind. Like if you are basically doing some construction work. So if you are doing a flyover or a building or a residential or a commercial one. So if there is a risk of any kind of mechanical failure, so that's going to be the same in all of the projects. So you would be able to determine what should be the appropriate capacity of the equipment to deal with a certain, load of the items which can take. So risk identification would help there. Which one is that?
D.
Yeah, D. Okay, so basically if you have, see, when you call a lot of stakeholders, so you can just count the number of the man hours is going to waste if you don't hold this meeting. So the best thing is to inform the meeting and there's an error in the report, and meeting would not only be about the report only, but it will be also about the agenda. So basically report is one of the part of the agenda. If there is a mistake in the report, so you just say that there is a mistake in the report, go ahead with the main agenda of the meeting and you can send a corrected copy later. So you save time here. So here what you have to calculate, actually it's not about new, just forget the word new. So I'm just giving you a hint, but in the exam it will be like this. So all you have to calculate is this etc. So okay, so what I want you to do, just look at your formula sheet, I believe you have it handy, and try to calculate the etc. So what is etc? etc is estimate to complete, means the amount of money that you would need to complete the rest of the project. So you are taking a health check, so you have actually spent certain amount of money and you are forecasting that what is the amount of money you would need to finish the rest of the project work. So that is called estimate to complete. Now first of all you have to find out what is the formula for estimate to complete. Okay, so just go through your formula sheet and find out.
ETC minus AC.
So you'll have to backtrack a little bit on your formulas.
Yes.
So how does it look like now?
It looks correct.
Okay, good. So so this is the only trick that they would do. So they will make you just backtrack through a couple of steps so as you get your values for the substitution so that you get your final answer. So what you have here, see the originally what they wanted you to do is get the ETC. So you need these two parameters, EAC minus AC. So they gave you this, but they didn't give you the EAC. So to get the EAC, you needed BAC and CPI, and BAC is there, then CPI isn't there. Okay, so you have to start calculating from the CPI, then you substitute the CPI here, and then you get your EAC, and then you get your answer is this. So that's what
Yep.
would take time. It's not that you don't know the answer. The thing is that you have to increase your speed to be able to do it within the time constraint. Okay, now here, this is about the communications. Okay, so there is a formula which, let me remind you, it is n minus
So
1 divided by 2.
yeah.
So basically they're asking how many fewer communication channels are there on your project.
55.
Eleven.
Yes, it's 11.
So guys, could you get the answer?
Yeah, 11.
Ah, yes. So that is basically the reduction in the number of channels. So this is how you get it, right? And then, so this is again the same trick that it's doing. So it's going to make you backtrack. So you got to find out the schedule variance. So a schedule variance basically tells you that what is the value of the work for this time behind, for this time period, for this time duration, which you're lagging behind. Okay, so you have to find out that. So first you got to note what is the formula of the schedule variance and find out that which one of them is supplied and which one of them is not. Then derive that and then substitute that and then get the answer.
6.56.
Got -7.
What?
-7.
Yeah.
So, this looks very small. Actually, they're just asking you the schedule variance and look at the number of the steps that you have to backtrack. So you have to go 4 steps back to get the value of the planned value. So once you get the planned value, then you get the schedule variance. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. So schedule variance equal to earned value minus planned value. So that is -7. So it means that you are $7 behind in the current health check period, in the current duration of the project health check period. So that is the interpretation of the schedule variance. So this is what you are supposed to do. So take practice exams. Okay, so practice exam is going to basically give you an idea that where you got to pay more the attention. So what you do that after taking the first exam, you look at the knowledge areas where you need to catch up. You just do only the gap study. I'm not saying that. So then I want you to switch to other guide. Okay, so you have got multiple guides there. So you can study with the first one, that is the Andy Crowe. They can switch you. Then you can switch over to my guide. Then you can switch over to the what they call, that is the brain. Okay, so then you have more and more idea about the knowledge area that from a different angle, the ones which are difficult ones. So in this way you make sure that you are consistently passing out, and so that you have 100% confidence to pass the actual test. So guys, don't end up taking up a costly mock test. So take the mock test for free, fail for free, and make sure that when you pay, you pass it out. So that is the strategy. So that's why we included this question banks. Okay, so that you are sure. So that's what will ensure that you can take a test with confidence. Now the biggest thing is to organize yourself. So you got to make sure that you are able to take the time out of your current activity, and if you can give the top priority to these projects, and all other projects would fall into place. So this project, the success in this project will ensure success in rest of the project that you would do for the rest of your lives, right? So do you have any questions?
Okay. So you are suggesting that the first step should be to go through your presentation,
Yeah, the go
and
through my presentation,
okay,
then read
and
the
then do
Andy
the
Crowe guide,
okay,
then
then
take the first mock test. And each time you take a mock test and you take it seriously, I mean, because sometimes people, they break up the mock test, they take it for 2 hours, then they just attend to some business and then come back and take the mock test once again. And take the mock test when you have undivided 4 hours, or at least say 4.5 hours of time, because you would need half an hour to evaluate. So make sure that you are not disturbed during the time period. You can take it in a continuous fashion. So use a stopwatch and start your countdown, and then take care of the questions. And that way, you would be subjecting yourself to not only the questions, that is the mock question, but you would be putting yourself through a simulator. Just like the pilots, they put themselves through a simulator to make themselves familiar with the real craft. So this is what I want you to get used to. So I want you to get used to the constraint of time. You got to feel that pressure, because what happens that if you take the mock test in a leisurely fashion, you just give yourself good enough time to take the mock test. You are taking, say, 1 hour today, 1 hour tomorrow, 1 hour day after tomorrow. So you might answer all the questions, but the thing is that you would never know that what's going to happen, how your mind is going to react when you take the same set of questions under the time constraint. So that is the thing. So guys, not only answering the questions is the right approach, but that should happen within the time constraint. So you should make yourself put under simulated time constraint and then take the test. So that is my suggestion. So first thing, you create a study plan, then go through my slides, go through the Andy Crow, first mock test, then gap study, second mock test, gap study, third mock test, fourth, and by the time you reach fourth or fifth set of questions, so you know you would be very good and confident to take the real test. That is the idea.
Okay. How did you get that we will get access to these folders?
Yes, so what you guys can do, can you please type in your Gmail IDs here, because you know I will give you access to the Google Drive. So Google Drive is very convenient these days. I believe that everybody can access it. So you can access the Google Drive from your app. You can access it from your browser. So most of the people, they do have a Gmail. So Nicole, I asked for a Gmail account. So I believe that if you have a personal Gmail account, so that would be good, because I have this one, this mail ID I have, but I don't think it's going to help you on the Google Drive. Many people have had problems with their non-Gmail IDs. Yeah. So yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yes. Good. Magnus. So
Yep.
as they come onto my screen, I just copy paste.
Zurich at
Okay. So NST Zurich. So you have a different mail ID for different locations.
you mean me?
Yes, because if you come to India, would it be nst.india@gmail.com? No, I'm just joking. I know you won't.
No, NST means Nicole Stucker.
So yeah, that Zurich means that place. Okay, good.
Yes.
And do I have all the email IDs? 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4. So which one did I miss? Razwan,
Mario.
Mario. Yeah, Mario, I need to copy this. Yeah, already
Go,
you
Mario.
are. So I have how many Gmail IDs? Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, fine. So there are 5 of you.
Yep.
Fine. Okay, fine.
So regarding,
No. 6.
sorry,
Yeah.
regarding the mock-up test, the mock tests, where do we get them? Do you send them as well? Do you send
Yes.
us this huge?
Yes. Do you see this? Do you see this folder? Just have a look. So this is the question set 1. This is the answer set to the question set 1. See this. This is the mock test set 1. Okay. So you don't have to take a print. You just put it on your screen, and you just take the answer sheet and write down your responses. And after you have done, just open the response. So this is the answer set. Okay. And then you mark yourself. Okay. And after that, you analyze which knowledge area they need further at the attention and improvement, and do a gap study, not the entire thing. So you can switch over to the switch over to another guide, because you know why I'm doing that. See, I have observed it psychologically. There is a very deep observation in this and research in this. Suppose if you read the same book, the same chapter once again, you would end up with the same gaps. Did you get my point? Suppose if you have some gaps in the risk management and you read the same book once again, so you'll have the same gaps, because you know your mind has a tendency to think, look, it is the same thing, I know every nook and corner of this, so you won't notice. So I'm making you, suppose you are short in the risk management, and I make you read risk management from a different book. So your mind will be more alert. So it will be looking forward and paying more attention, your subconscious mind. So that way you will be able to catch up with what you missed in the first read. Okay, so that's
So
the
you will,
idea. Yeah,
so
tell
you
me.
will send us the total PMP student package, as I see on the left column, right?
Yes, yes. So this is the
The
total
whole
package.
thing.
So it has all these folders. So it has the folder. So your appropriate folder would be the learning aid, PM template, PMI magazine. So this is for the people, those who want to take the CAPM. So CAPM application is a subset of the PMP. So those who are taking the training for the PMP, so they can always take the CAPM. Okay, but you guys all, I believe you qualify for the PMP, so you take the PMP, and someone who is part, because normally what happens that we do not get a lot of nominations for the CAPM, so we do not conduct CAPM batches separately. So we ask the people, those who want to take the CAPM test or CAPM certification, to come and join us in the PMP batch only, and for them they can use this folder, and you are PMP, so you use this folder. So that's your application process. So this is the sheet that in which you would basically fill in your details. You observe this one, make a copy, blank it out, fill in yours, and then you can go to the website and you can apply for the examination. So when you apply for the examination, make sure that you are doing it as a member. Why is it wise to do it as a member? Because the maths is very simple. Now let me show this to you. A non-member pays $555 for the test. Okay, so this is the test fee, that is the non-member, and a member pays $139 and then $405. So if you add this two, it is $544. You still save $11, and plus the advantage is that you get savings, you get payback, you get magazines, you get membership to local PMI chapter.
I don't think the PMI local PMI chapter is included.
No, it is included. So the $10 fees is included here in 139. It is 129 plus 10. Okay, so that is the $10 is the membership to the local PMI chapter, and plus what do you get?
I remember
So,
I had to pay for my country.
Pardon?
I remember I had to pay for that separately for my country.
Maybe, but I believe in most of the places, at least.
For example, Russia has it for free. Right?
Okay,
I don't know.
okay, that's good. So this is what is there. So you can just check it. But the main thing is that savings, PMBOK, magazine, networking, and you get access to digital library, in which you can access more PMI standards and all that stuff. So this is the benefit. Okay, savings, what you get is $11. So this is the benefit. So make sure that you first become the member, then you apply. So when you are submitting your application, there is no need to pay. You pay only after you get go ahead or a green flag from the PMI. So after the audit process. So this is the benefit. Now one more thing which I missed to tell you in the package, in the PM template, what I have, one more thing that you should take notice. Those of you love to use Microsoft Project, or those of you do use Microsoft Project, I have included a template which is a PMI compliant or a PMBOK 5 compliant. This is a project management schedule or a project management plan. So I have included the 5 process groups here. So as you can see, and who is using Microsoft Project?
I am.
I do. Minus.
Okay, great. So what you can do, that you can use this knowledge areas Okay, inside this, the initiating, do you see this? This is all mapped to the PMBOK 5. So the initiating process group has identified stakeholders, and if you see this, so this can basically teach you a lot of project management here as well. So this is executing complete, monitoring and controlling complete. So you can see on the top. So basically monitoring and controlling should be near about this. So when you fill up your own plan, so make sure that it is equal to the execution group. So you spend a lot of time planning the initiating planning. So they are almost like proportionate to the percentage as in the basically in the PMI, I mean the process groups number of the process. So there are more processes in planning. So planning takes up more time. Okay. So these durations, they are just a sample duration. They are not necessary that they would be, I mean, the same for you. So here is certain notes. So what you are going to do here, do you see these notes here? You identify.
Yes.
So isn't it cool?
Yes, it's cool.
Yes.
Great.
So you can not only use it, but you can learn from it. So if you are not just using it, you just open this plan. Just guys, just do this thing. Just hover your cursor here. Just read the notes. So you know it's going to refresh you on the knowledge areas. So this is also included there. So this is inside the this is inside your template folder. Okay. So in the template folder, you have this and template folder, and then you have the lessons learned. So you have it here. And those who want to use the Excel sheet for the earned value, so they can use this. So, you know, these are containing the, I mean, the questions on page 183, the set of, I mean, the worksheet that I shared with you. Okay. The worksheet which have been used during the training. So basically these are pages from the Andy Crowe guide. These are from the Andy Crowe, actual Andy Crowe guide. Okay, page 183, page 190. So these are, so you can use them practically as well if you substitute these values with your actual project values. So you can really see that how your project is turning out. Okay, so guys, so what I'm going to do that after this session, I'm going to, I mean, send an invite from the Google Drive, and you are going to receive a mail, and I believe you would be able to download. If you can't download, just send me a mail. I would respond back to you, and if you have any other needs, so you can talk to me on WhatsApp or Skype. So that's my WhatsApp, and my Skype is this. So you can note it, or you can send me a mail. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, I wanted to say that maybe you can send it over email.
Oh yes.
But it's okay. I got a screenshot.
So even email is this. So whichever you want, you can use, and you can link up with me if you go to my site, and if you go to my website, you can find a link to the LinkedIn profile, and from there you can link up with me. I'm going to do that. I'm going to paste it here. The details you can just copy and you can retain it. Okay. I hope you are getting it. So you just copy and keep it with you. Okay. So that's all from my side. I hope you plan well and you execute and monitor that plan well, and you will achieve your success. So best of luck from my side.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
Questions about
Yeah.
for the training? Does this happen automatically? And what about sending our names over to Hathor? Because my name is a bit spelled wrong in the chat here, so I don't know if it's the same or if it's a typo somewhere else.
No, so this name you just make sure, no, this name won't be basically used in the certificate. So you just make sure you talk to your training coordinator. I mean, the person who is coordinating your admission and all that, you send a mail to her explicitly or to him explicitly stating that this is the name spelling that should appear in the certificate. Okay, so that will be taken care of, no issues in that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. It was a pleasure interacting with you.
Thanks a lot, and good luck everyone with the exam.
Yeah, good luck
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, plan
Good
well.
luck to everyone.
Guys,
Good
keep in touch with each other as well. Share some knowledge. Okay, so that is good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you.